listening to The Edge, everything bass fishing, coming to you worldwide from Megaware KeelGuard Studios.
Aaron, here we go, man. We are on the cusp of a 4th of July weekend. Happy Independence Day to everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of BassEdge Radio, coming to you from the hilltops of Table Rock Lake. I remember that, Aaron. The hilltops of Table Rock.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't see the hilltops of Table Rock Lake where I'm sitting right now. So
that's right. But we are on the shores of Lake Amistad in Del Rio, Texas. Man, it's great to be back on the mic with you, Aaron. How are you, my friend?
Well, I am doing great. And as always, Kurt, want to just throw out a big shout out to Megaware KeelGuard. Been with us since day one. Our friends there with the first do-it-yourself keel protector, the Flex Step, the Skate Guard. Be sure to check out all things Megaware for all of your boat protection and personal watercraft needs at KeelGuard.com. Kurt, I am actually getting ready to, as soon as we get done, I will be heading to Alaska to go salmon fishing for the next 7 days up on the Naknek. So obviously I need to go way north, different species, because can't catch a bass, evidently, at Truman.
I was looking at the standings, my friend. I was a little taken back. I know you were excited to go over there, but you did let it all hang out there. And let's admit, even off the air, you said it was great to be back out on the water. You haven't been able to spend a whole lot of time there this year.
No, in the 30 years of fishing kind of at that competitive level, this year has been just because of work schedule, other commitments. I've had to put that on the back seat, but that's okay. I did get to spend a full week of practice from Tuesday on, hang out with all of the boys, Els to Derek Felton to Chris Bunk to, all of those guys. And want to throw out a shout out to Derek Felton because he got it done. 18 pounds, first time on the lake, came in. Wow. And I don't know, I think we had 179, 189 boats, something like that. I didn't see the final number.
It was a big field, though.
It was a big field for Truman. And, found some really good fish in practice, doing my thing, exactly what I said in the last interview, staying shallow, throwing a frog, flipping shallow bushes. The water was coming down about 6 inches per day, but that's okay. But that's how it was won. So I don't feel bad about that. It's one of those times, Kurt, to where I just didn't get it done. And so learn and move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's always fun. As you mentioned, we got to keep it real, right? I mean, being out on the lake is the battle here. In some cases, especially with a lot of weekend anglers and just trying to get out there and enjoy the process. Sure, I know you caught plenty of fish throughout the days that you were there ahead of the event, and that's what makes it worthwhile. Especially even the shout out to the guys. Hanging out with the guys at the lake is always fun as well.
It was, and you've got one coming up.
I do. Man, I'm on the cusp of New York right here and Lake Oneida, the Bassmaster Open, the second stop of the Northern Open swing. So excited about that. I've got a lot of history there with Oneida. Been around the block on the lake, and it's always a complex, changing fishery. So we'll see what lies ahead. They had a crazy cold winter up there, and then it's been hot, like it has everywhere. It got hot pretty quick, and the steam factor is on 10. Right? I mean, it's been warm everywhere. Yeah. So
well, I wish
I'm looking forward to it.
Nothing but the best there. Looking forward to hear how that goes when you get back. And while we're kind of on the tournament subject, I know that's not what we're all about here at BassEdge, but you've got to look at Nick LeBrun back to back. Brandon Lester kind of sneaks in there, and then we've got kind of a Angler of the Year race across all three circuits. Yeah,
we do, man. Wheeler's got a little lead over there with the BBT, and they've got a few events left. You got Polinick really shaking up the Bassmaster Elite Series Angler of the Year standings. He's sitting on top of that. And then you got Josh Butler, a little bit of a newcomer there on top of the Angler of the Year standings with the Pro Circuit. But, man, I got to give a shout-out to last year's AOY of the Pro Circuit, Michael Neal, man. I think he's 4 out of 5 top 10s this year. He's sitting in second place. Yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable. Breaking down all this stuff, I love Brandon Lester's win. That was his first big major win. He kind of came over the hump earlier this year at, I think it was Lake Toho, won an open event. Now in the same year, boom, he wins the Elite Series event on Pickwick. You already mentioned the back-to-back with LeBrun on the pro circuit. Not to mention, prior to the back-to-back, you had him second place at Ross Barnett in the Bassmaster Central Open, and LeBrun also finished in the top 10 at Lake Pickwick.
All
just
because he was on BassEdge Radio.
Unbelievable, man. This guy right now is on the run of runs. You know, one of those rare times that you see in the sport where a guy really just gets the mojo going. You know, has the man.
He's the afterburner.
He is really lighting it up, man. And it's cool because he's doing it a lot of different ways. You know, he's caught some fish deep there at Gunnersville to win. He, threw a swim jig shallow at Ross Barnett, had a spot more or less at the James River that really dialed him in, and kind of fished like he does, you know, back home there in Louisiana, bouncing crankbaits off cypress trees and the like. So really neat to watch, man. A lot of fun stuff going on in the tournament world. We're kind of into that area where we're going on these northern swings everywhere. Not only me, but all the tours headed up there to the north. You got Champlain coming up on the pro circuit. You've got the Elite Series going to St. Lawrence, and then they're going to be hitting Oahe later on this summer. So we're going to talk about that in a future episode. But lots
Before
of
we
fun
head north,
stuff.
Why don't we take a West Coast swing, Kurt? And I think you've got somebody teed up for us. I can't wait to actually talk to.
We do, man. Loving these seg Bs, these new portions that we're sticking into the shows and the episodes, and a lot of fun here. Hang tight. We're going to chat with some new JDM lures on the market with Matt Paino of Optimum Baits. Y'all hang tight right here on BassEdge Radio.
Nitro Performance Bass Boats. Get pro-level performance with the Nitro Z18, the official boat of Major League Fishing. The Z18, with its nimble handling and versatility, sports many of the features in the larger boats in the line, like a Guardian Live Well, a heavily insulated cooler, dual 8-foot rod storage, and our smooth and fast NVT hull. Every Nitro boat is laid out to do one thing very well: catch fish. Enormous front decks, up to 45 square feet on the Z21, allow maximum mobility when battling unruly bass, and feature low-profile gunnels for ease of skipping, pitching, flipping, or landing fish. Nitro Performance Bass Boats, pure fishing machines.
Aaron, there's a guy who stays on top of some of the latest up-and-coming companies out of Japan. We're fortunate to have him on this episode of BassEdge Radio, the owner of Optimum Baits and distributor of several Japanese manufacturers here in the USA as well. We welcome Matt Paino. Matt, thanks for dropping in with us here on BassEdge Radio.
Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to the show. I'm glad to be on it with you guys.
Well, Matt, we're glad to have you. And for loyal listeners of BassEdge, dating back now 379 episodes, Kurt often talks here on the show about the IMA family of lures you distribute, as well as the Optimum swim baits that you produce right here in the USA. But today we dive into some extremely new lure and a brand that is beginning really to, pardon the pun, make some waves here in the USA market. First, let's dive into the manufacturer, Madness, and the lure you're selling here in the USA called the Balam. Gosh, I've seen those YouTube videos. What an extremely interesting fishing method. Please, tell us about the Balam lure and the figure 8 technique that is unique really to what I would consider bass fishing. I've seen it in the muskie before, but once fish are attracted to the lure.
Yeah, so a little bit of history on the Balam. It's a 3-jointed swim bait with a soft silicone tail. It comes in a couple of sizes, a 245 millimeter and a 250. So that's, you're looking at an 8-inch bait and a 10-inch bait. And they're designed, they're floating baits predominantly. We have a sinking version as well, but predominantly to be used on the surface. And it's a different approach for your traditional hard swim bait, which is more of a glide bait. This jointed bait is designed to be fished fast. It's a straight reaction style swim bait, which is not your norm. Most of your glide baits are used to cast out and methodically on a straight retrieve will glide back and forth, depending 1 foot to 2 feet to 3 feet on a glide back and forth, whereas the Balam is designed with all the different joints just to burn as fast as you can, fishing near structure, whether you're fishing bluff walls, cliffs, trees, over grass. But it's strictly reactionary, where you're fishing as fast as you can, You want to use the highest speed reel you can get, which typically guys will use like an 8-to-1. The Daiwa Tatula 8-to-1 the 300 series is a perfect reel for it because it allows you to fish it so fast. The fish will see it and they react to it and they'll beeline it right after the bait. And a lot of the times they'll hit it on the retrieve, and if not, they'll with the curiosity they'll run all the way to the boat or to the shore. And then the more popular technique that guys are catching them on is the figure 8 or the 8 trap, where you're doing that 8 motion at the boat and the fish are going nuts. It's insane to watch them. There's a switch that goes off in the fish in the bass, and they're just like trying to just kill that bait. It's an extremely fun method to catch big bass with the Balam.
Matt, seeing the videos as Aaron mentioned before, that kind of triggered our interest to get you on the show and talk about this a little bit more. Now, you talked a little bit about the real fast-paced retrieve, critical, obviously probably a clear water situation or clearer water situation is great for this type of technique. But what about rod setup? Are you using like a softer style rod because you're winding so fast so that when the bass does explode, either on the retrieve or when you're working this figure 8 technique, that it's got some give to it?
Yeah, the Balam is, I think the 245 is 4 ounces, and then the 300 is 6 ounces. So you need a rod that's a heavy to extra heavy rod that's got a softer tip, because when you're doing the 8 trap and the fish are hitting it, you only have a foot to 2 foot of line out when you're doing that 8 trap. So you're going to need something with a little bit of give, when it hits right there. But you do need a heavy to extra heavy rod to throw it.
I want to encourage everyone to check out the YouTube videos, and they can find it there at Optimum Baits YouTube channel. That's right, Matt?
Yeah. Go to our YouTube channel and or just do a Google search with the Madness Balam swim bait. And the designer of the bait, Kazuya Shimada in Japan, he's one of the most well-known swim baiters in Japan and also in the world now. But he used to have the Japanese national bass record. It was 19.15. He cut that in 2003. And then it was obviously broken a few years back out of Biwa. But no, he's got some awesome videos in the Japanese lakes, Lake Ikehara and some of the other lakes. And they are clear water reservoirs. They're not trout in their waters, but they're native Japanese bait fish, whether it's ayu or wakasagi or heta, which is kind of like a carpish bait fish. But no, check out his videos. They're amazing. They will open your eyes to a new way of catching trophy bass on big swim baits, because it's not your norm where you're fishing slow. For all those guys out there, and there's a lot of us that, we throw swim baits all day long looking for that one big bite, right. And it's frustrating at times when you'll get these followers and because of the drawing power of these big baits, but they'll just freaking, turn away at the boat and you don't get them. But with the Balam, that's how it basically came about, where how do you catch these followers and get them to trigger and get them to bite it? And that's where that faster retrieve, you don't give them the time to think. They're just in a kill mode and
reaction. Yeah.
And just straight reaction. It's amazing. But yeah, do a YouTube search on the Balam and the videos are amazing. Shimada's got tons of videos going back to 2016 when he released the first version of this bait. And obviously all the videos are in Japan and you'll get, well, our bass don't do that here in the States. And which is you're just not used to fishing it that way. And they do it here. So we did in the springtime. We went up north to Northern California and fished some of the lakes up there. Deep water reservoirs, clear water with a lot of submerged trees, a lot of walls. And we created our own video. We were catching spots up there, but they were reacting the same way. It was amazing. And it was just a fun way to fish a big swim bait.
Yeah. I want to mention too about that, you got a lot of live scopers out there, people just enthralled with that technology and taking this method of fishing to a whole new level, right? You get the fish to react to the fast moving lure. The Balam is coming to the boat quickly. You can actually now see the fish behind the bait with the live sonar out in front of the boat. So you're able to point the sonar toward where you're working that fast moving lure. The Balam's coming back to the boat. You're seeing the fish on live scope. So even if you don't see the fish, that now you can use that figure 8 technique to get that fish to react and strike by the boat. Whereas previously, maybe we wouldn't have known those fish were following the lure. Now taking it to a whole different level with the live sonar as well in with this fishing technique.
Yeah, for sure. And that was this spring, that was actually my first experience using that technology and seeing them on the grass, that they were following the baits, whereas before, you couldn't see them with your naked eye. Where there was, the water clarity is just not that clear where you can see them. But no, you're right, Kurt, that technology has, allowed us to just see the fish on the graph and then continue the 8-trap, and then, they'll follow it. You'll see them on the graph, then they'll do the 8-trap, and once you get going with that commotion right there at the surface, then they freaking just get that switch on and react. And it's funny though. Typical, you'll do an 8-trap and you'll do it once or twice, and then you give up. However, what I really learned this last trip is you can do that technique for a minute, 2 minutes, and they finally go. I mean, you'll be tired, physically tired right. of going back and forth. If you watch some of the videos, they'll hit it 2 minutes into it. It's just insane. And
wow.
Then you get them one fired up, and if you have 2 or 3 followers, all 3 of them will be going. It's insane,
That's crazy. That is crazy. Well, Matt, I've also seen another one of the Japanese brands you're importing begin to really gain some traction in the market of recent, and that is the Deps. From hard baits to plastics, what are the top selling items in this brand, and what makes the lures more effective than other lures in their class?
Deps is another brand that I do import. We've been doing that brand since 2005, and it's Deps is a powerhouse in Japan. They're definitely within the top 3 brands over there, and they have a vast assortment of different items. But, from the big bait scene, the slide swimmers, we have them all the way from the smallest one is a 115 all the way up to the 250. That is, amongst the swim baiters, the slide swimmer is the number one
right.
swim bait out there. It is unique. Whereas it's a hard ABS plastic, and it's got a soft silicone skin over it on that jointed glide bait. And that does extremely well for us. And, as far as some other hard baits, we have like the BuzzJet has been a staple, which is a big wake bait. Got good drawing power, got a prop in the back that throws a lot of water and a lot of noise, a lot of commotion. We just released an Evoke Zero, which is another top water bait. That does extremely well. And then they've got, as far as like hollow bodied frogs, we have a Slither K and a Buster K that does well. There's a lot of guys out on, either MLF series or the elites that like that Buster K and does in Slither K that does really well. Elite angler Kenta Kimura is the designer of those baits. He's stepped up onto the scene and done well in the elites for the past few years. Now, more recently, we've been importing a lot of their plastics, which Deps is very, very strong. We've just now started to really penetrate the U.S. market with the plastics as the yen got a little weaker versus the dollar, and it allowed us to bring in some more plastics at a
price point that's effective, right?
Exactly. They're still on the upper end of things, but they are very effective. In some of the plastics that we've been releasing that have done well here are the bull flat, the cover scat, and the Sakamata shad. A few years back, one of the Japanese anglers that fished the Opens, Masayuki Matsushita, he actually won on Rayburn fishing the Sakamata, which is a soft jerkbait style plastic that's got wings on it to help for balance in how it falls. But that's really opened up a lot of anglers, U.S. anglers here, on the Deps plastics. And then recently, the cover scat, which is a very unique profile shape. It looks very just like a piece of poop. However, it's very, very effective.
That thing is crazy, dude. I've seen the cover scat, and we actually had the little rabbit, work extremely here at Amistad. Matt, obviously you set us up here, the youth anglers with the pro bass camp that I do here at Lake Amistad. Both absolutely caught the fish, and I think a lot of the youth anglers were a little surprised how effective they were, man, I got to say that cover skate, you could throw it anywhere. You could throw it on a bluff. You could throw it in the grass. There's a lot of different unique ways to work that lure. It's kind of a heavy plastic, so you don't need weight. You can throw it weightless, but yet still work the bottom or work, bottom bouncing cover type situations, man. And it's definitely, very unique. If you're looking for something different, you got to check out these manufacturers, Madness, Deps, a lot of the things. You go to OptimumBaits.com, you'll be able to really peruse all the JDM manufacturers that Matt imports, some of them specifically unique. And we all know that being unique in the bass fishing market can prove effectiveness in catching fish. Would you agree, Matt?
For sure. No, it's they definitely have their own twist on different versions and shapes of plastics, and they obviously have a lot of different techniques because of their pressure lakes that they come up with, and they're very, very effective here as well. That cover scat, like you said, it is a heavy bait. The 3.5 inches, I think it's like a little over 3/4 of an ounce. So you can literally, you can spool your reel with that thing. You can cast it, like you're fishing a topwater bait. And because it's so heavy, it stays down, and you're fishing with depending upon the size of the bait, a 4-0 offset hook, and it'll get down there, and you're fishing on a lot of slack line. And it's basically, when you're working the bottom, you're just kind of like you're walking the dog underneath the surface on the bottom with that bait. And it just, because the way it flutters and the way it stays down, it's a very effective bait.
Wow. Well, Matt, great stuff. We always like getting the inside scoop, and a lot of that seems to come in from the West Coast. And certainly for those who haven't watch that interview, be sure to go to the YouTube channel. And Matt, maybe you could give listeners one more chance of where to find that, as well as all information that we talked about here today.
Yeah, everyone can go to OptimumBaits.com. We have 5 or 6 different Japanese brands, as well as the Optimum and AA brands there. You can peruse our site, and we've got all the information, the colors listed, different tips and techniques that you can find on all these plastics and all these hard baits that we offer. OptimumBaits.com. Thank you guys very much for having me on the show.
Well,
absolutely, Matt. Great to have you here. Up next, y'all, here we go. We got the featured angler spotlight coming up right here on BassEdge Radio.
I am MLF BPT angler Dakota Ebert.
I am BASS Elite Series Pro Brock Mosley.
I am professional angler James Niggemine.
This is Bass Pro Shops U.S. Open champions Logan Parks
and Tucker Smith right here on BassEdge Radio.
Know the importance of protecting your investments, so why use anything else other than the original and toughest DIY keel protector for your boat, Megaware KeelGuard. Grinding sand, abrasive rocks, and concrete ramps are no match for our exclusive contoured edge and patented technology. Megaware KeelGuard keel protectors are made tough and made to stick. Their do-it-yourself installation takes less than an hour, providing the longest-lasting, most dependable keel protection for your boat, guaranteed for life. Developed specifically by boat builders offering the best keel protection in the industry. Also from Megaware KeelGuard, Skeg Guard, Flex Step Pro, and Pontoon Guard. So give your boat the performance edge. Put on the protection the pros pick. Megaware KeelGuard.
Well, here we go, breaking down a tournament win in a seasonal time of year that begs for cooler water temps and good current. The Dam. We've seen it come into play so many times in winning patterns and just flat out fish catching fun. This angler recently won the Bass Pro Tour fishing a dam, so who better to break down this cover or structure for successful bass angling? Welcome to the show, MLF BBT Watts Bar champion, Ryan Salzman. Pleasure to have you on BassEdge, my man Ryan. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not too much. Just doing a little guiding and getting ready for the next event at Stage 6, Cayuga Lake.
Outstanding. Chance to go back-to-back. You going to pull a LeBron on them or what?
Man, it was so crazy. I was talking to my buddy. I was like, you only get so many times to go back-to-back in your career. I said, it'll be really cool to do. And then LeBron does it. And I was like, man, that's amazing. It would be pretty cool to have 2 back-to-back.
Well, Kurt likes to take credit for every time that an angler is on BassEdge Radio. He has ownership with Nick. So anyway, we'll see what we can do for you, Ryan. But before we
Are
jump,
you his handler?
Right.
Yeah, he's his pilot. Before we jump into the future, let's talk a little bit about the past, Ryan. Big attaboy for the BPT win there on Watts Bar. Overall, how has your rookie year been on the BPT tour, and does it feel any different than any other events you fished in the past leading up to your qualifying last year?
Man, it's been a year of highs and lows and learning. For me, the first event I bombed along with a lot of other great anglers. Garbone was a very, very tough fishery, and props to anyone who figured that puzzle out. Lake Fork, I went and pre-practiced and felt very comfortable there. Lake Fork to me felt like a Tennessee River lake with standing timber, and I kind of clicked with it and had a great tournament there. And then we came to Smith Lake, had a good one. I got to experience that bubble boy making the cut, not making the cut. I was the first man out. I was in, and then like 3 minutes ago, Jesse Wiggins caught a 3.5, 4-pounder and bumped me out. I was like 21st. And then fast forward to Ozarks, had a great day one. I was like kind of on a big fish pattern around docks and marinas. Had like 4 fish for 17 pounds and lost a big one. Probably could have had 20-something for 5. And then day 2, I never put one in the boat, so I blanked on day 2. And I kind of learned a really good lesson there. You can't play too risky in the BPT format because you have to have more than 5 to 7 opportunities, like, the 5-fish format.
Sure.
So that brings us kind of to Watts Bar. So after learning that lesson, it's kind of shifted my perspective on how I wanted to look at Watts Bar. I said, I want to just find a bait and a technique that gets bit all over the lake. And I was guiding a lot on Pickwick Lake and what have you, and kind of led up to figuring out what I did there.
That's cool, man. I like the breakdown. How about the inside feel? It's 80 anglers. A lot of those guys really close-knit, been in the industry for eons, some of them, right? So how about that aspect of it? Have you felt kind of a little bit different in hobnobbing with KVD and some of the other true legends that are still participating in the sport in that respect?
It takes a few tournaments to be, just being around those guys to build familiarity and comfortability, just like any workplace, right?
Yep.
It just so happens that these are your heroes and your idols. So I feel like it's just now towards the end of the season, I've gotten to be more comfortable. But yeah, they're just like any other dudes. They're fierce competitors. And the biggest thing is they've all been really nice, and it's been a warm welcome. I mean, there's been no kind of animosity or, how there's like rivalries and you just feel like everyone's at each other's throat. There's none of that. I feel like it's a big family and everyone wants best for all the anglers. And, but as soon as you go on the water, we're all competitors and they hope you zero, but.
Cool. That's a good insight to that, Ryan. We've seen dams come into play for a good bit of summer tournaments through the years and other times of year. Obviously, your win. Hank Cherry utilized the dam last summer to win the Bassmaster Classic. Toyota Series Championship there on Pickwick last fall, won near the dam. What makes the dam on any lake a great place to fish?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to the basics of fishing. You have habitat and you have bait fish. And then when you have both of those, I think it naturally attracts fish. And the benefit of a dam is there's moving water. So it's like a conveyor belt for fish. Once they find the good habitat or structure, they can kind of sit there and food comes to them. So it's kind of a perfect scenario for fish to live and grow.
Well, and let me preface this next question, Ryan, not necessarily from the civil engineering perspective, but in your opinion, are all dams created equal? You have 2 types of dam environments. You have the face of the dam or the tailwaters of a dam. What do you look for to put time in on a dam at a particular lake?
Man, there's a lot that goes into that. I think the biggest thing is going to be time of year. So in the summers, the high sides of dams tend to be better just because they have deeper water over them, right? So when it's hotter, they can slide down deeper and escape the heat. During the summer, during the low side of the dam and the tail race, they tend to become more nocturnal feeders. And you can go up and fish a dam like all day during the day in the summer and have, catch a few fish. But if you went out and fished the same exact place at night, where you caught 10, 11 pounds during the day for a 5-fish limit, you might catch 20 to 25 pounds at night.
And Ryan, do you think that has to do with because of generation schedules and I'd like to get both of your your opinion on this too. We've probably seen certain lakes tend to reduce generation perhaps during the day, or maybe it's more sporadic. Do you think that also plays into it?
Not for the summer nocturnal feeding thing. That is a pure heat-based. Yeah, I think it's just a heat-based feeding thing for the dam that I've noticed over the years. I fished a lot of night tournaments when I guided on Pickwick Lake, and I went to college over there, and it's just definitely a nocturnal thing. That's when they want to feed during the summertime. I feel like then during the day, they're just kind of hibernating, most of them.
And you think that's because there's more current on the low, obviously in the tail race versus the
I don't think that has to do with current at all in the summertime. As far as what I'm getting at is the feed windows.
Gotcha.
It has nothing to do with the current. It's just they're just like it has to do with their circadian rhythm in the summertime when they want to feed. They feel more comfortable at night because it's cooler, right? Now, current during the daytime plays into feeding tremendously, but I'm just kind of making that point to say during the summertime, dams aren't always as good as they are during the cooler months, and you kind of got to figure out which place of the dam you want to fish, the low or the high, and if it's even a player during the summertime, because, most of the time the dam's fishing, it's won during the spring and the fall. But if you have a big tournament in the winter, dam's always a player too. But the summer is kind of that weird window where you got to fish it and figure it out, because the winning fish may be there, but they may not be even active.
Makes sense. I can say, obviously I live down here at Lake Amistad, and the dam's a big player here on this lake. And the one thing that you said that seems to be prevalent, at least here on a consistent basis and other places I've been, is the bait fish orientation. Once the summer heat really takes hold, you get a lot of fish starting to suspend. Something we saw similarly there at Watts Bar, right? They're kind of suspending on the face of that dam. Here at Amistad, a lot of times they'll suspend a little bit off the dam on the ledges or structure that's associated with that deep water around the dam. How important was that aspect to your Watts Bar win, as far as the bait fish orientation? And what do you feel like the bait fish do in changing conditions that you're able to capitalize on with your experience fishing dams?
Well, it really depends if the dam has current or not. So does Amistad have current on the dam, or is it just like a wall?
It's just pretty much like a riprap wall, similar to like what Hank Cherry did at Ray Roberts, that style of dam. So we don't have like current generation, obviously, like TVA. Nobody's got current generation like TVA, right? But maybe so you got it on the Coosa or something like that. But yeah, it's kind of rare in that scenario from a general lake perspective to have the current.
I think we need to, the reason I'm asking that is I think we need to differentiate for the listeners that when we're talking about dams, because the way we were kind of attacking it is we're making it sound like dams are all the same.
That's correct.
Not the case.
And they're not.
They're not. No, when you're talking about Amistad, really, in my mind, that is just a great place with structure. Now, the TVA and even Florida lakes or locks and dams, the reason they're so special is because of the current. And it has the structure, and it has the bait fish. So it's like its own animal. Now, not that dams down there are lesser than. It's just I think fish are more concentrated at these areas. It's definitely not as expansive. I just remember going to Louisville, the dam down there. I mean, it's miles wide, right?
Yes. Yep.
Right. And these things might be a half mile wide. The place I was fishing is 200 yards wide, hundreds of fish in this 200-yard stretch. So the current is what really focuses the concentration of these fish. And that's been my experience mostly, just fishing the current generated areas below the TVA. And I've even done it a little bit in Florida when I've gone down there and have had success.
When you talk about current, are you focusing on seams or just the face of the current? When you're working, like you said, two different styles of dams, right? You got current-oriented dams and then like a Smith Lake type deal, you mentioned there, or Amistad type deal, where it's not necessarily current generation. It's just deep water in an area, kind of more fishing the face of the dam, right?
Yeah, so Smith Lake does have current. I don't know if you guys watched Connell's win. The way he won was very, very similar to the way I won, except his fish were about 30 feet deep. And they suck out of this one place, and where they were stuck in current, the minnows were getting sucked there, and all the spots were stacked up there right in front of the turbine. So he was dropping a drop shot down to those fish. But it kind of circles back to your original question with the minnows. During the summertime, they'll start out about 5 to 10 feet deep in the morning. You'll just see them kind of suspended down there. And as the sun gets higher and higher, and I think this has to do with the way they feed on the plankton, the minnows begin to come higher and higher to the surface. And what happens a lot of time in the summer, you see schooling activity. And that happens later in the afternoon because the minnows get higher to the surface, and then the bass take advantage of the fact that they're pinned to the surface, and they come up and feed on them because they can't really escape. So that was kind of what was happening to me at Watts Bar. My bite got better later in the day, mainly because the minnows would gradually get closer to the surface, and then they would kick on the generation later in the day. So they're on the surface, and then when the current kicks on, the minnows that were on the surface got sucked up against that wall where the bass were already living.
Gotcha.
So it just was triggering a feeding frenzy.
Very unique situation. And I think, like I was mentioning before, Amistad, you see some of the same thing. We don't have of course, I would assume every dam has some current, right? Because water goes out the other end for the river to flow. But obviously there's some that generate much more current than another. And in this scenario here at Amistad, very similar to what you saw there at Watts Bar, is the bait fish will congregate around the dam. And although they're not getting pushed kind of up against the face of the dam like they did in your scenario there at Watts Bar, they just come up and feed. And as the day progresses, the bait fish move closer to the surface, and then all of a sudden the bass start schooling different times of the day when they start really jamming on those bait fish. So it's interesting to break down the different styles, because obviously listeners are all over the country, and you got lots of factors going on with how to be successful fishing around a dam. So, man, I appreciate you helping us break this down. This is a fun topic, and we're going to power pole down for a minute. We're going to dive into more issues about the dam right after these messages with MLF BBT champion Ryan Salzman.
Patented in 2000, perfected over years of testing and real-world punishment, the Power Pole is the ultimate shallow water boat positioning tool. Swift. Power Pole deploys in seconds from anywhere in your boat. Virtually silent, Power Pole won't spook wary fish. Secure in strong currents or gusting winds in up to 8 feet of water. Engineered to take it with a lifetime unconditional replacement guarantee on the spike. Power Pole. Swift. Silent. Secure. Visit powerpole.com to find a dealer near you.
BassEdge, presented in part by Mercury Marine, returns with MLF Bass Pro Tour angler Ryan Salzman in this episode's featured Angler Spotlight. Mercury Marine. Go boldly.
Ryan, before the break, we talked a lot about types of dams, current, non-current scenarios, face, tailwaters, all kinds of stuff. Let's break down some of your most successful techniques that you'll use. Let's talk first about the face of the dam. What kind of techniques, similar to what you did there at Watts Bar, do you find, generally successful for you?
So I call it the high side of the dam. It's basically where the lake ends, and they're sucking, down to the other lake where it begins the new river or tailwater. So the best lures I've found there are a topwater, a fluke, a spoon, a swim bait, and a drop shot. So basically everything I listed there is suspended bass fishing. And then once again, in the winter, I think an Alabama rig would be phenomenal. I haven't done much of that fishing, but it just kind of fits the bill, right? So, yeah, I think that those are kind of the techniques I look for.
And then how do the techniques differ for when you're fishing around the tailwaters or what you would like to call the low side of the dam with a lot of current? How do you work lures effectively without just breaking everything off?
So I think it takes a tremendous amount of skill to be a great tailwater fisherman. It's not as hard to go to the high side of the dam and figure them out, because it's kind of like you got this thing in front of you, you can see the fish, and it's almost like what's called a ledge spot where there's fish just stuck there, and you're just kind of rotating through baits trying to figure them out. The tailwater, it can be a 1 mile stretch of rocks and current, or it can be a 7 mile stretch like at Pickwick of rocky scenes, current scenes, bluff walls, and whatnot. So you really have to put some time in fishing, below that dam in all the different current situations to really figure them out. So I'm going to say time on the water is the first thing, but the best thing I can pass on to the viewers is, if you're doing that, to keep, the effective baits in your hand. And that's going to be a jig, it's going to be a swim bait, a topwater, and a shaky head. So if you can keep those lures in your hand and then, move around that 1 mile to 7 mile stretch, and just figure out what those fish are relating to or eating, and even the timing of it. Because, for example, if they're pulling 20,000 below a Wilson Dam on Pickwick, for anyone listening, I say 20,000. That is cubic feet per second. You can get online and kind of look what that means. That's just how to define the amount of water coming out of Wilson Dam. Now, for reference, we look for about 40,000 to 60,000. That is a decent amount of current coming through that I kind of look for to spark fish in the feeding. A lot of current starts once you get above like 80,000 to 100. I consider that like a high volume. And then once you get above 100, you're looking to a flood scenario. So something else that you want to look at for if you're going to do this is find the app that shows you the amount of current flowing through the dams near you. You know, on the Coosa River, you mentioned phenomenal dam fishing down there, a lot of spotted bass and stripers. They have Alabama Power. And then up here, you're going to have TVA Lake Info. So you want to download those apps and monitor the generation schedule.
Very cool. That's valuable information. So basically, you're looking for 40,000 plus to turn it on. What I mean by turn it on, to really have some major effect on fish feeding behavior. When it gets to 80 to 100, do you feel like that's like, okay, I need to move down lake a little bit? Or do you still feel like if you can hold and play the dam game from a tail race perspective, then you should try to stay up in that zone?
I won't leave a dam until like the water, like they're pulling like 200.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So, and the 40 is kind of like just a kind of a rule of thumb, so to speak. Right. You know, any influx or change in current can spark a feed. So like if they're pulling 15 and they jump to 25, they can start feeding for a minute, and vice versa. If they're pulling 25 and they're kind of used to that, 25 will get them going. You know, you take the increase 25 to 40 might spark a feed. So.
Great stuff. Now we're talking mostly on the tailwater, I assume there. What about the upper, like you call the upper section of the dam or the face of the dam? Do those current changes on the tail race side affect also feeding behavior on the upper side as well?
Absolutely. And if anyone watched the last day of the coverage for Watts Bar, you'll see there's a period where I just start lighting them up. And Wheeler's ahead of me by about 11 pounds, and I caught him and got ahead of him by a fish. And that was because they cut this one generator on. And when they would cut this one generator on, it would suck the current in such a way across the face of the dam that the fish would start schooling. And I was just having a ball catching these schooling fish. I was so excited, having fun.
That's cool.
And all of a sudden in the third period, they turned that off. But they were pulling the same amount of cubic feet per second, but they switched generators. So what happened was it repositioned those fish, and those fish weren't schooling anymore. So I had to make a decision to switch techniques there. But
and that's when you went to the drop shot, right?
Yes, when I went to the drop shot, because that was kind of my go-to when they weren't coming up and feeding, to, you know, pitch it along the wall and hopefully pick one off that pulls up a little deeper to feed. But it's a great talking point because the dams, you know, on the low side or high side, the feed changes depending on which generator they pull. It's because it depends on how that water's shooting across the rocks. So it all depends on how that current hits the rocks and where they position.
Very, very interesting. There you go, man. That's some detailed juice right there. I like it. All right. Well, let's talk real quick about, first I want to hit on, you know, seasonal behavior patterns. You mentioned in the first half of the interview, I think it was wintertime, you know, is a great time to fish the dams, obviously A-rigs, those kinds of things, and cooler water. Summertime, you like more of the nighttime. From a tournament win perspective, when do you see those things kind of adjust from a seasonal behavior pattern? If a BassEdge, you know, weekend anglers out there wanting to put some time in on his local dam, when is the best time of year for him to be there and try to create duplicate success like you had there at Watts Bar?
I think really any time of year you can go have success. In the summer, I'll kind of go through the seasons and kind of just throw some patterns out to them. In the summer, you want to be there as early as you can in the morning, and then again late in the evening, and you want to look for top water. In the fall, I'm also going to be having the top water, a fluke, an A-rig, a swim bait. And then once again in the winter, you're going to be more towards the A-rig and a jerkbait. Then the best time is in early spring pre-spawn when the fish are starting the stage and they're feeding heavily. So that you'll find your little deeper holes at the dam, and there'll just be groups and groups of fish, and their fish are coming to you because they're coming there to spawn. They're coming there to feed and get ready to spawn. So it is by far the best time of the year to go fish a dam is in the spring. However, at the same time, everybody knows that now, and you have a lot of pressure. Right. So that's where kind of, you know, the better you learn it, the better you can catch them.
Yeah. And Ryan, your responses to this entire interview got me to thinking, what makes you or other anglers on the Bass Pro Tour so good? You know, success in the industry is widely known. Have you put your finger on it since you've been around that accomplished group of anglers, this year, and then certainly, posting your win and now going for, another one?
Yeah, there's a few things that I think make a great angler. They're all phenomenal anglers. So the biggest thing is there is a certain way of thinking that every angler on that tour has. Because even though we're only 80 guys and we can't get any information, we all still find the same exact things. And it just tells me that to be successful, there's definitely a certain way, like our brains naturally think a certain way. And I think the way I kind of explain it to my clients when I guide is, anyone that hunts, there's hunting dog breeds and there's dog breeds that don't hunt. I think most of these anglers are born with an innate ability, instinctual ability to find these fish. It can be learned, but I think there's definitely an instinctual quality to every angler. And then on top of that, what makes anglers able to win is their mental side of the game, is being able to stay positive, make decisions. Even though something's going bad, one decision can turn your whole day around. So for me, it's being able to stay positive and in the moment and taking it cast by cast and fish by fish and try not to worry about the end outcome.
Awesome. Man, I got to take it back. One more question to the dam scenario, although that was a great listen. That was a great question, Aaron. But how about boat positioning, dude? You talk about, you'll fish it as long as you can possibly stay up there and work a tail race or work the face of a dam, no matter the current scenario. Man, how do you work boat position? What are you looking for to be successful with fast moving current? Man, how do you continue to concentrate on the ability to fish effectively when you kind of have that safety concern as well? Break that down for our listeners just so that if they attempt this, they get the Salzman 101 on boat positioning.
So if it's your first time going to the dam, definitely wear your life jacket. And then if you're 800 feet or closer to the dam, you have to wear your life jacket. If you're in the swift water, definitely take your time getting up there. If it's your first time going up below a dam, look on a map. The best thing I tell you to do, find a satellite image where the water's drawn down and look for really high rock piles, and then mark those on your GPS and avoid those, because that is the number one safety thing, is not hitting the shallow rock. Now, once you identify those, you want to go up to the dam, run up to the swift water, and then drop your trolling motor, let your boat kind of start drifting with the current, so you kind of hit terminal velocity. Terminal velocity means your boat is moving at the same rate of the current, like you guys are one. And then once that happens, your trolling motor's down, keep your nose pointed into the current. That is the best way to control your boat. You don't want it sideways, perpendicular. You want it into the current and parallel with the current. And once you've done that, you can hold at a spot if your trolling motor is strong enough, or you can kind of, I call it bumping the trolling motor. You kind of might put it on 5 and hold for a little bit, and you kind of gives you a little more time to fish through a set of rocks, and then you let yourself drift to another little pile or whatnot. So a lot of times I'm going to be bumping the trolling motor,
Good information. And obviously not as much to worry about if you're on the upside or the face of the dam. Obviously there's current scenarios and gaps and that kind of thing, but not as wild. But I did notice at the Watts Bar event that you got real close to the face of that dam and necessarily enabled to target the fish correctly. You were right dead nuts on the wall. I
was. And I do want to put a safety disclaimer out. We tragically had it was a father and 2 sons pass away on Pickwick Lake because they actually got sucked over the high side of the dam. If they are ever spilling the water, never go close to that dam. I don't want anyone listening to this podcast to go to that dam if they're spilling water. Spilling means the spill gates are on. And those apps I told you will tell you if they are. And when they are, you'll actually see a huge mist too. When you look at that dam, if there's a huge mist over it, do not go near that dam because it can be life-threatening.
Very good disclaimer there, and great safety work. I remember a scenario similar to this was Alabama River Bassmaster Elite Series event they had several years back, and a lot of guys were running all the way up the Coosa or all the way up the Alabama River to where the Coosa was falling in, and Jared Miller got kind of in a precarious situation up there. He ended up being okay with some major boat damage, but definitely something to be very, very careful about. So great point there. Ryan, man, this has been a lot of fun. We've got a segment with the Nitro Performance Bass Boat listener question. This question comes from Francisco Rangel, he's out of Central California. Francisco asks, what are your best 3 summer techniques for highland reservoirs?
Ooh, this is a great question. So I love it, though, because it kind of plays into the techniques that we've been talking about.
Sure.
The highland reservoir fishing is almost identical to fishing that high side of the dam because it's just deep water, right? I want him to have a topwater of some sort, a swim bait of some sort, and a drop shot. And the key is finding, the right topwater and then the right swim bait. It might be a finesse one. It might be a 2.8. It might be a 6-inch. In California, they'll key in on those hitch. 7, 8-inch swim baits are not an issue. The 8-inch mag draft I know is a really good one out there. And then the drop shot, put a 1/4 ounce drop shot on and a little 4.5 or 6-inch RoboWorm, and I think he'll be good to go.
Good stuff there, Ryan. Thanks for answering Francisco's question. Pretty open-ended question, but great advice and certainly ties right into what we've been talking about this whole interview. Francisco, we need one more thing from you, and that is to be sure to log on to BassEdge.com. Click the Claim Your Prize tab, fill out the information and your address, and let us know that you heard Ryan answer your question, and we will get your Midway USA gift certificate sent directly to you to where you can buy all things fishing. Even if you're into the shooting sports, they have all things outdoors.
Continued reminder of Bass Edge listeners, send in those questions to the show via our website, BassEdge.com. Simply click on the Ask the Pros tab or comment on our Facebook or Instagram page to have another shot at winning the Midway USA gift certificate right here from us at Bass Edge Radio.
Well, Ryan, I got to say it, even though I'm going to get totally ridiculed from my daughter, but thanks for being on this damn episode of Bass Edge Radio, and she will accuse me of making a terrible dad joke right there. But any final thoughts for our listeners?
Man, just thank you guys, and I really appreciate it. Anybody that watches me, may notice my fun Hawaiian hat with my hang loose symbol on it.
I was going to mention that. You need to get a signature hat going. What's the brand of that hat again, Ryan?
So it's made by Shaka Kai, and I do work with them. It kind of all started out with, I used to film a lot with Mikey Balls before I was on the professional tour, and Mikey always wore a Hawaiian hat. So I found a Hawaiian hat because I always like play pranks and have fun.
Right.
I bought this Hawaiian hat and showed up and filmed with him. And it was a lot of fun. And then Shaka Kai reached out to me and were like, well, thanks for the plug. And they sent me some free product. And then I followed up with a proposal to them when I made the Pro Tour, and they loved it. And we've been working with each other ever since.
Cool, man. Very cool. I'm gonna look for the Salzy edition, right? That's kind of the nickname running the streets, Salzy, right?
Yes, sir. That's my nickname.
We got to get the Salzy Shaka Kai hat going. So I'll be excited to see it when it hits. I guarantee when it hits, I'm the first purchase. I'll buy one as soon as I see it available. So I think that's a cool deal. Love the little floral arrangement with the what kind of hand signal is that on the Shaka Kai hat?
It's hang loose symbol.
Hang loose symbol. Yeah, it's cool stuff, man. Ryan, it's been so much fun having you on the show. Especially enjoy the knowledge, the breakdown of the dams, obviously, and just summertime, wintertime, all aspects of fishing that people can enjoy, catching a lot of fish around the dam. Oftentimes, I think in many parts of the country, a little bit ignored. Obviously, there in your part of the country, it's a staple on the TVA Coosa River chains, but I think it can be effective all over the country as well. So I appreciate all the tips and techniques. Best wishes for the remainder of the BBT season, and Bass Edge Nation, hold on right there. Aaron and I will return in a jiffy.
You know the importance of protecting your investments, so why use anything else other than the original and toughest DIY keel protector for your boat, Megaware KeelGuard. Grinding sand, abrasive rocks, and concrete ramps are no match for our exclusive contoured edge and patented technology. Megaware KeelGuard keel protectors are made tough and made to stick. Their do-it-yourself installation takes less than an hour, providing the longest-lasting, most dependable keel protection for your boat, guaranteed for life. Developed specifically by boat builders offering the best keel protection in the industry. Also from Megaware KeelGuard, Skeg Guard, Flex Step Pro, and Pontoon Guard. So give your boat the performance edge. Put on the protection the pros pick. Megaware KeelGuard.
The PowerPole Charge Marine Power Management Station is the most advanced system of its kind available on the market. It does the work of 3 devices, a traditional battery charger, a charge on the run, and an emergency start system, all in one compact unit. The Charge lets you run your boat's accessories the way you want to run them by allowing you to monitor and control your power usage through the PowerPole app. It automatically devotes power to the batteries that need it the most for maximum efficiency. The new Charge from PowerPole. Power where you need it, power how you need it, power when you need it.
Kurt, the glide bait, swim bait, I don't know how you want to classify that, but the Balam is something very unique that we heard Matt talk about, as well as then I had no idea when you get into, the Madness manufacturer, then you've got Deps, all of the things that he talked about was very, very interesting and informing.
Yeah, man. Let me tell you, the Japan market, Matt knows it. Like most people probably don't know fishing in general, but Matt knows that market. He speaks fluent Japanese. So he's got the beat on everything that's going on over there. And of course, he's always bringing the cool, latest and greatest techniques. And like he mentioned in the interview, Japan bass super pressured. We're seeing that a lot here in the U.S. as well. And, different techniques get bit. And if you can get ahead on the forefront of different techniques, different styles of fishing, you're going to get ahead on the forefront of catching bass. So that's the cool thing about what Matt's going on. So I encourage everyone to keep checking out what he's doing over there at OptimumBaits.com. But talking a little bit more about the Salzy interview, man. Brian Salzman bringing the goodies on the dam. What's your take on that?
I don't think we've ever done an episode on just talking, an entire episode about the dams, and both the upside of like Ryan called it, and the low side, or the face or the tailwaters. Very, very informative. And I got to say, I think we should get a Shaka Kai hat sent to us.
Yeah. I would love to have one, man. That's a cool looking freaking hat. If you haven't seen that, obviously you can check it out on anywhere. Obviously, since he won the event, all you got to do is just like Google Watts Bar Ryan Salzman, and you're going to see the hat on his head. And he sports it all the time, dude. It's not just like a thing. It's like his style, right? It's
right.
Like he's kind of got that mojo too, where he's kind of happy-go-lucky, always kind of chilling. But, being all those things, dude, he brought some technical info to the game as well today, right?
Empirical data. I think it all comes back to it's not guessing. It's not, we think. He flat out says, this is what I do. This is why I do it. He talked about the difference with the turbine, one turbine kicking on, then it's shutting off and having to reposition. The guy knows his stuff, and certainly the results show that. Yeah,
man. A lot of fun chatting with him. So it was great to hear another just, dadgummit, Aaron, informative episode of BassEdge Radio. You've joked before about how we do this for ourselves, but man, if we're not asking, and I agree with that, I want to learn. I want to be a better fisherman. If you don't have the fundamentals of the game down, you're not going to be good at the game, or you're not going to excel at the game. So it's always important to reap some of the fundamental basics of the game, but also have some additional tips and tricks. And I think that's what makes our podcast unique, is that we both are very avid anglers, and that we, get a little bit deeper with our questions rather than just scathing over a technique, but trying to ask some difficult and intriguing questions to get to the real meat of the fishing game.
Right. It's a performance-based business, and hopefully over the years, and we will continue to do so as long as the demand is there. But, it's about putting more fish in the boat, and all of the anglers bring a uniqueness to that. And I love diving off into, okay, what are you thinking? Why are you doing what you're doing? Not just saying, because a lot of times people don't think about, right? They just are successful, and they think that's just how it's done. But being able for them to articulate that, I think it helps bring our IQ up along with it. Well, Kurt, one thing we should have done before I leave, as I get ready to leave for Alaska here shortly, is we needed to do an episode on Lindy rigs and three-way swivels, because that's probably what I'm going to be doing. And so anyway, that just sounds, I'm sure, glamorous.
Well, after you learn all about it, you can bring your knowledge base right back to the podcast.
Okay, I will do that, and I'm sure that'll go about a dime of how you can buy a cup of coffee. So Anyway, all right. Well, we digress. Been fun. Enjoyed hanging at the mic with you, Kurt. Safe travels on all of your mini trips. Good luck with the upcoming camp. Any closing thoughts?
Man, just excited about being in New York, excited about some cooler weather, excited about catching bronzeback. That's what summers are made for, particularly July and August, because generally the greenbacks get a little tough down south. So always love coming up here, wrangling with the bronzeback, smallmouth. They're just a ton of fun. And, dude, I'm not ashamed of it. I love it.
No. And just good luck with those mosquitoes that are the size of doves. So anyway, hence your last name. All right, that's enough of us. Hey, Bass Edge Nation, thank you so much for spending time with Kurt and I here on Bass Edge Radio. Be sure to stay on all things Bass Edge through our social media channels and certainly the website. For Kurt Dove and the rest of the Bass Edge crew, I am Aaron Martin. So long, everybody.
The Edge is presented by Megaware KeelGuard. For more information on Bass Edge or to shop at the Bass Edge online store, visit BassEdge.com and be sure to join Kurt Dove and Aaron Martin right here on another episode of The Edge, brought to you in part by Nitro Boats, Midway USA, Mercury Marine, Power Pole, and